If you're a person who is available 24/7, maybe your first boundary is I take an hour a day where I check my email, or I go through a meal without checking the email. Like it can be something very small. And I want people to start there because I think it feels safer. And when you feel safe to set that boundary, you're actually going to do it. And the more that you do it, the more that you teach your brain, hey, it's okay if I do this.
Hi, welcome to our Happy Rainmaker series. I'm joined by Jenn Deal today. She's a trademark lawyer and a coach for lawyers. Welcome, Jenn.
Thanks so much for having me.
I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while, and I think everybody should look out for your content. It's really helpful. One of the things that you're able to help people with is the issue of boundaries.
It's a fun thing to talk about. It's one of those things that I think a lot of lawyers wish they had more of, did more of, but it's also a really hard thing to do.
Sometimes we think about boundaries the wrong way. So in your practice, what is a boundary and how should we think about it?
It's a great question. So I think about boundaries as essentially it's a decision that you make in advance or a rule you set for yourself about how you want your life and career to look. So what you are willing to do or not do, what you're willing to accept or not accept in your life and in your career. And the thing that I think that we often get wrong is we think of boundaries as a way to control other people. So I'll give you some examples of boundaries that the folks I work with often set. So things like maybe I'm not going to work after 7 p.m. or if I have kids, maybe I'm not going to work from 3 to 7 so I can handle pickup, bedtime, all those sorts of things. And then I'll get back online. Or maybe it's something like limiting the type of clients that you work with or setting your prices. I can consider a boundary. And what we often think is that if I set this boundary, other people can't violate it. So we focus externally, meaning that if I say I'm not going to work after 7 p.m., other people shouldn't eat. Other people shouldn't give me work that might take me working after hours. But that's not what a boundary is. A boundary is about how you're going to show up. So if your boundary is I'm not going to work after 7 p.m., other people get to email you whenever they want. You don't get to control that piece of it. Instead, what you can control is, do I open my email? Do I respond to that email? Do I push back on the deadlines? Do I let people know that I'm not working past 7? Those are the parts that are in your control. And so if you focus internally on what is my boundary, what do I need to do to show up to enforce it, that's going to feel so much better than trying to get other people to change their behavior, because I know we've all tried that and it very rarely works. So that is the thing that I think that we tend to miss when we're thinking about boundaries. It's really about us and how we're going to show up.
Do you think the boundaries that lawyers can set differ by the stage they are in their career or how long they've been in a particular job?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think, and I want to make this very clear, that you can set boundaries at any level. So I absolutely think a first year attorney can set boundaries. Do I think those are going to be the same boundaries you're going to set as a partner with your own book of business? Probably not. And so really, to me, it's thinking about twofold. One, what can I do now? What are some small things I can do if I'm more junior? And then the other piece of it is, how do I get more control? And the way that you get more control is by becoming more valuable to wherever it is you're working. So if you're in private practice, that's going to look like making yourself invaluable to clients, building your own book of business at some point eventually. All of that is going to give you a lot more control. But I do think that it's worth, no matter where you are in your career, stopping and thinking about the kinds of boundaries that you can set. Because even as a first year, I think, for example, there's often these rumors that go around in law firms that you shouldn't take vacation as a first year. I think that's absurd. You should definitely take a vacation as a first year, but you have to be maybe more thoughtful about that vacation, right? Maybe I'm going to check my emails, or I'm going to be really thoughtful about how I transition work while I'm gone in a way that I might not have to. Yeah. I was a partner and other people were handling that work. So I definitely think it's possible. I definitely think you should do it, but it is probably going to look different for you depending on where you are in your career and how much control you have over your own work and your own business.
How do you help one of your clients decide on the boundaries that are meaningful to her?
So for me, the way that I work with folks, most of our boundaries that we want to set are around time and the way that we are spending our time. And that seems to be pretty clear for people when they come in. They want to do either less of a particular something or they just want to have more free time, whatever it is for them. And for me, the goal is always, how can we start small? So I think about taking incremental steps, because when you think about setting boundaries, it's often so uncomfortable, the idea that someone might be mad at us or we might disappoint someone or we might let someone down. It's so uncomfortable that we just don't do it. And so what I like to do is pick something that is small, excuse me, something that feels safe. So maybe that is if you're a person who is available 24/7, maybe your first boundary is I take an hour a day where I check my email or I go through a meal without checking the email. Like it can be something very small. And I want people to start there because I think it feels safer. And when you feel safe to set that boundary, you're actually going to do it. And the more that you do it, the more that you teach your brain, hey, it's okay if I do this. And so then maybe we can expand to 2 hours a day, or maybe it's 3 hours a day, and we go from there. But if you're trying to set this huge, big, scary boundary at first, it's just going to be so uncomfortable that you're going to end up not doing it. So I would rather you do something that seems and feels small in the beginning in order just to build that skill and that habit of boundary setting.
Well, thank you so much. This was really, really helpful.
Thanks so much for having me.